And if you can't tell what just happened, it turned into this. So it's a Strife with a Nerf crossbow glued to it. The crossbow doesn't have anything functional. I just hacked up the shell, and I know a bunch of people are butthurt, and good, that was the point. Oh, you wasted a crossbow. Ah, you should have shipped it to me. Ah, you should have given it away. Blah, 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 blah. Whatever. It was my crossbow. I get to do whatever I want with it. I paid for it, and this is what I wanted to do. I think this is the best use of a Nerf crossbow. Nerf crossbows are quite expensive. This is actually the most expensive Nerf blaster I have put together in materials, and it's probably the most time-consuming project I've ever done, just based on sanding alone. So this is the Nerf Strife, and then I have the crossbow stock area and the crossbow top area for the LEDs, and then also the foregrip here. And I also added a Rapid Strike tactical rail for attachments or whatever. I just thought that was a good use of the space. I definitely wanted to keep the little grill area of the crossbow in place because when you press this red button here, turns on the LEDs. That plate there says POONBOW. That is what the blaster is called. Poon is Patrician Organization of Ohio Nerf. That's my Nerf clan. We're a bit secretive, so I'm not getting into the Nerf clan, but it is the POONBOW because it sort of represents the clan. Patrician Nerf, that's what it's all about. And I can't think of anything more patrician than just throwing money at a project to make it shoot really hard. And I've done that. I've done everything to make the flywheel blaster shoot pretty much as well as you can make a flywheel blaster shoot. I didn't only take out the stock motors and replace them, I actually took out the entire flywheel housing and replaced it with an aftermarket one. Dr. Snickas of SRT Performance Parts sent me a part out of Germany, which is awesome, and it actually has custom engraved Coop 772 right on the side of it there. It's an aftermarket flywheel housing. The advantage of the aftermarket flywheel housing is something of rifling because it's sort of offset flywheels instead of just normal, and they're also concave instead of a flat surface. For additional surface area, I will make a different video completely on that product to go into detail. Too long didn't read. It makes the Elite Darts group stupid tight. Like, my groupings out of Elite Darts are like what Koosh Darts used to be, and Koosh Darts are just like ridiculously tight. So now it's not only shooting hard, but it's also shooting incredibly accurately. More details in that standalone video, but in addition to replacing the flywheels and the flywheel housing, I also replaced the motors with Extreme 180s. Low resistance wiring throughout, took out all the mechanical and electronic locks, replaced the electronic rev switch with a low resistance, high flow switch. This orange thing is still the factory, the button, but this switch is what I'm referring to. That's what I replaced, and it's running on a LiPo battery. This is a 2-cell LiPo. The motors can handle 3, but I don't really think it's beneficial because I'm still encountering dart slippage at this RPM, and pros and cons, this is what I want to run 2-cell. And I'm running that on a Dean's connector. That is housed in the stock battery tray. There is a tiny bit of flex upward because I did Dremel out quite a bit of the tray to try to get more space. Of course, the ridges and the flap, but it's still a large battery. Not a big deal. I wanted to try to get a big battery in there for extended playtime. Definitely happy with the results because I can still unscrew that and switch out the batteries sort of like stock. Yeah, so I pretty much took everything out and replaced everything other than the pusher mech, which I cleaned up, filed down, lubricated, so it's just super slippery, and it feels great. Also internally, I have LEDs. I have 1/8" polycarb strips of plastic up in here, and then I have LEDs inside of that. Instead of using component LEDs, like single ones, I have strips of them, mostly because I'm a lazy bum and this is way faster, and it was only like 12 bucks for the whole strip, so it's not even more expensive. But that gives me really, really consistent lighting throughout the whole top tray, and then the lettering of POONBOW, it has a bunch of LEDs all the way up in there. This plate is a 3D printed plate that I had done. I don't actually have a printer that says POONBOW, so I didn't have to carve that out. That's not like a painted on thing. That's actually missing out of the plastic, and then I put a piece of polycarb behind it, lit up the polycarb, so now you can read POONBOW, which I think is pretty cool. The LEDs are not connected to the same circuit as the Strife. This is running a 9-volt battery, and when you push this red button here, it toggles. It's not a momentary, it's a toggle or on-off switch, so you can just push it, forget about it, play in, you know, like normal LED circuits. And I forgot to mention, this is also a 3D printed motor cage. I don't really like this part, but after I glued it on, no going back. It's excessively large for what it does, and it still vents, so you're not going to overheat too much, but this protects the 180 motors from external damage if you get hit or whatever, because the 180 motors, of course, require the shell cutting. To the externals, I think the most obvious thing here is the integration. Started with a Strife, cut down the Strife a little bit, started with a perfectly functional crossbow. I know a bunch of people are crying right now. Deal with it, I love this blaster now. Cut down the crossbow, glued it to the Strife. I glued it initially with solvent weld and hot glue, and then I have Smoothcast 65D, and then I also have epoxy sculpt on the outside. A variety of adhesives for different purposes, and then I also have a minor amount of epoxy putty, but mostly epoxy sculpt on the outside to smooth it out. And then I sanded it like a mother for a while, and then until it was pretty smooth, which I'm definitely happy with the external finish. I think it looks good. After that looked good, I primed everything with a black vinyl dye, including the internals, so when you look up through there, it's not the factory blue, it's just black, which looks like a shadow. I like that. Automotive gray base coat, Citadel blue, and then an enamel pink, and I wanted to go to pink instead of green. Blue and green are my favorite colors, like my personal Straven. It's gray, green, and blue, but I wanted to change it up, so I threw in pink, and I think it looks pretty cool. It is a glossier pink, which I don't use very often, but I think it looks pretty nice. And then of course I left the orange parts unpainted because I only intend to use this on college campuses. I don't really shoot stock darts anywhere else, and I try to make it look as toy-y as possible, especially on a gray base coat. This is a very dark blaster with a lot of black here, and it has more similar dimensions to like a rifle than a normal strife. So I thought all of the orange was necessary. I know the orange and pink clash a little bit, but I don't care. Very happy with the paint, very happy with the cosmetic work. The ergonomics are phenomenal. This is not cut the exact same as a normal crossbow because the crossbow is of course designed for children. This dimension is actually extended by about 2 inches, so I have additional stock length here. I'm over 6'3" in height, so that extra length makes me feel more at home here instead of like cramped up on the normal crossbow. That's just a picky thing, but since I had to cut it down and I had to do everything myself anyways, I might as well just customize it. It made it look a little bit weird here, but I think I patched the gap just fine, so it looks pretty good, and it feels just amazing. The overall balance of this blaster is phenomenal. You're getting the great part of the crossbow, which is the stock and really where your face sits, the cheek weld here. It feels amazing. And then you'll have the comfort of the strife handle. I don't actually like the crossbow handle, and then I also have the cool front end of the crossbow. So I kind of just picked the best things out of the blasters, in my opinion, the best or my favorite, and then put them all together, including the rapid strike rail. Picked the rapid strike rail over anything else because it already had a built-in riser. That was this part here, so I just put it on so I could mount any optic. Realistically, I'm probably going to have an in-strike camera mount for a GoPro that will then slide on and off on the rail instead of something that is adhered like my contour thing on my Straven. Overall thoughts on the project, I'm absolutely in love with the POONBOW. I never want to get rid of it. The project was designed to just put so much money and time into it that I wouldn't want to get rid of it, and I don't want to because it's the perfect blaster for me. I love the strife, I love the crossbow, I love the comfort, and I just needed something excessive. Is it excessive? Absolutely. Would I recommend doing this to anybody or for anyone? No, not at all, because it's a total waste of money. I put way too much money into this project. The materials I used are all premium materials. The flywheel housing, it's not a cheap part, it's a performance part. Are you going to get a linear rate of return on that investment dollar per performance boost? Probably not, definitely not, especially with the crossbow, but totally worth it. I love it. Yeah. Performance is top tier out of any flywheel blaster I've seen. Velocity readings are phenomenal, yet safe, pretty consistent, and the groupings, holy crap, the groupings are phenomenal. And then the LiPo, of course, has the advantage of a very fast rev up time. I do still recommend most people use ultrafires or IMRs. I don't recommend LiPos to everybody, and I know a bunch of people get pretty butthurt over that. I don't think I've ever said ultrafires are superior to LiPos, like in general performance, but the hassle of stripping out your tray and abandoning the ability to use batteries is not something I would recommend to everybody, especially with the wiring and all of the extra hassle. So that is the general overview of the POONBOW, my new personal primary. I'm absolutely in love with this thing. I do have a text article in the description box below going over the whole mod process. Well, sort of. I try to take photos along the way, and I'd like to elaborate in the text article because these videos would be about an hour and a half long if I went into that much detail in one go. So link in the description box if you're interested in checking out that article on my website, coop772.com. That is the overview of the POONBOW. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.